Hey guys, in this video I'm going to share with you what it really feels like to have an ego death. Now, to better get understanding of what ego death really is, first we have to understand what an ego is. Now, the ego is a narrative or a story we have formulated about ourselves. It's the story we have formulated around our identity and a personality. For example, my name, my relationships, my status in society, my reputation, or my relationship with other people, or my race, my religion, my gender, or anything that has been formulated around the ego that gives a sense of safety and security and certainty around being a sense of self, and anything that gives us a strong foundation of who we think we are is a part of the ego. Now, we all need a sense of self and an ego to survive in the society, or like if you see from an evolutionary perspective, all our ancestors had to be hunter-gatherers and they were living in the wild, so they had to have a sense of self for their own survival. Now, the ego is responsible for two main functions, which is survival and procreation, and seeking certainty. Now the painful truth is, to transform ourselves and to have personal growth, we all have to go through uncertainty. This is how the personal growth and transformation comes about. Ego is also as I mentioned, is a survival mechanism and is a default mode network. Default mode network means, a certain characteristics or foundation through which default autopilot mind is formed, and this is like something on autopilot. It's going on until we become aware of it. Now, what is an ego death? Ego death is a death of perceived self. Your old self or the perceived self has really died, and it's really a painful feeling. The brain loses all its identification and the way it defined itself, or in other words, the way you defined yourself. It all falls apart. All the definitions, all the labels, all the attachments, all the external attachments are being lost. Like, for example, it could be your job, your relationships, the place where you live. All the attachment to the external is being gone, so you have nothing to rely upon, and you feel like the ground has been taken off your feet and you have nothing to stand on, and it's really like floating feeling. Ego death can be brought about or happens often in a lot of people when they go through a tough heartbreaks, or they lose a job, or they lose a family member or their loved ones, or anything that has been strongly associated with their identity, and that's when the mental breakdown happens, and that's where the ego death really happens. Now, you may find yourself that you are realizing that the old routines, hobbies, habits, the things that you found joy in are really falling apart, and it may be a feeling of depression, apathy, grief, all these negative emotions, or at least perceived negative emotions. It is a depressing feeling because now that you don't know who you really are, you are questioning yourself and questioning everything. You don't find joy in the things that you really enjoyed before, and it is really painful. I did went through it last year, and it was not a good feeling. These feelings and emotions are temporary and all transitory, and since I went through my awakening in 2017-18, and last year 2020, where I had the biggest mental breakdown ever, since year by year I was losing a part of my old identity and trying to discover who I really am, and last year was one of the toughest letting go process and understanding of who we really are. You may find yourself in confusion, despair, no motivation to do anything, and not even look after yourself properly, and it's really disillusion of your ego. Now, I completely understand and empathize with anyone who is going through this, especially during this quarantine and lockdown times where we are left with ourselves and our thoughts, and as we have never spent time with our own selves, and it may bring up a lot of things and questioning of a lot of things and priorities in our lives. So I have been completely alone since 2017-18, and especially last year when I went through this. I know I've been repeating this as well, but I was left completely alone, and when I used to go to work, I used to come back and just sit down and just cry and then release all these emotions and feelings that I was feeling, trying to process them. And you could find yourself in a lot of mood swings and not really understanding what's going on, and you could be confused about everything, like your life and the things that you're associating with. All your beliefs are deeply questioned, and uncomfortable truths are brought to the surface, and now that you are trying to face the truth of life and trying to bring acceptance to them. Now, what does the ego death really feel like? So ego death brings up a lot of suppressed emotions from your subconscious mind to the surface to be dealt with and reconciled, and at a level to bring peace to them. You will feel like you are lost and confused and you don't know what you really want. You will have a decreased will to live and keep going on with your daily routine or the things that you are doing currently in your life. You may feel like you are worthless and you don't really matter, or everything, like your self-worth is really questioned here. You may have thoughts about you may have thoughts about doing a suicide or things like that, because all your ego is doing is it's crying for help, it's crying for certainty and safety, because now that you don't know who you really are. Ego prefers death rather than living in uncertainty. You may prefer death more than anything else. Rather than living in uncertainty, you might prefer to just die. You will feel ungrounded, feel like it's really hard to face life, and being really anxious, depressed, apathetic, and you may feel like you're levitating or you are not in your body. And because the ego has nothing to hold on to, there is an increased desire to dissociate from yourself, like dissociate from your own body, and you might feel really spacey as well. Now, the most important part is how to cope and manage this ego death. Now, coping and managing, obviously it's arbitrary, but there are certain steps that you can do to reduce the intensity and go step by step with this process. Now, an important part and really crucial part to go through this ego death is realizing that you are not your mind, you are not your body. Simply just witnessing and being observant and observing these thoughts that you are having, that your ego might say there is no point of going on further and there is like nothing left, and that is like death might be more preferable right now than anything else. Now, I have went through various ego deaths, but they were like really small in my process of awakening, and I'm still on the go. The journey never ends. But I'll share with you some pictures of when I had some mental breakdowns in like last year, and then year before, and then year before, so you get some context of what it really looks like. We should all know and understand that it is all temporary, and it is just a phase of life, and it will pass, and you will be left with newer insights and newer information about yourself, and really discover yourself, as this will bring a lot of emotions and feelings to be processed. Do not ignore your feelings and your emotions. Acknowledge them, and keep yourself balanced, and stay with your moods and your emotions and your mood swings. Allow the mourning and grieving process to follow through in this process, because this is like death, and it should be treated as such. I remember, as I mentioned, that I have been spending a lot of time indoors because since it was lockdown as well, that I've been spending time indoors, releasing and just crying. There was no one to hold me or support me, although it's really important to seek out support and being vulnerable and seeking therapy, psychotherapy, or any healer that you can approach, or find someone that you can use your time to heal yourself. it's important to allow these emotions and feelings to flow through you, so you can integrate them and you can make them a part of yourself rather than ignoring your how you feel. It's really not a good place to ignore how you feel. If you feel angry and raged out and there's suppressed anger is coming to the surface, go to the field, go to a safe place that where you can express your anger, practice some boxing, or I would just go to fields and I would just like shout and just release it all out, release all the suppressed emotions from my system. Then that would make me feel more lighter afterwards. Another tip I have for you is simply just, I have this, I'll show you, is I have this journal. I write them. I've been showing this in my various videos as well. Is simply just write down how you feel, without judgment, without judging yourself. Just write down how you feel, and that will make you feel more lighter and help you process what's really going on within you. Engage in activities that keep you grounded. It might be playing with your pets, doing gardening, or anything that makes you connected to earth. You can do earthing, you can just walk barefoot on grass, you can go into the fields, spend time in nature. Nature is really a natural healer. It will help you to process a lot of things. Take more time to meditate. And for longer periods of time, if it's something that you find helpful. And I think it helped me to really connect with my inner being. We all have our inner being that we need to connect to, which is our guiding mechanism, and it's like inner guidance we have within all of us. To connect with it through meditation is really powerful and really helps you to set your path from there on. Now that you're left with these questions and uncertainty and doubt and all these things, from one point of view, now that you have freedom to choose who you want to be and how you want to be, without taking permission from anyone, or without being really sure of how it goes, but it all comes down to faith. From one point of view, that your ego has died and it has lost all its grounds and certainty about what it's going to do, and it might confuse you. From another perspective, it is a place of transformation and really getting to a place of knowing yourself, knowing thyself, and it is like a liberating feeling too. So I want to leave this video up to here, and I hope it helps you, gives you some perspective. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions, if I may be able to help you. And peace and much love to you guys, and stay strong. You're not alone, and much love.